So the bulk of this morning's proceedings were really about different versions of a statement she'd made initially with two police officers in the Western Cape who'd come to her home, which was then taken from a written form into a typed form. And she had issues with about the content in the typed form, describing it as a corrupted version of her statement. And she says that when she met with senior Hawks officials, she made annotations to show just how corrupt that statement was, and then said that she'd been able to read the original version, the written version she hadn't seen for years, by today, something she hadn't done yesterday. So it was quite a sort of long-winded procedural hearing this morning over that statement and some of its contents. Toward the end of that, she thanked the chairperson of the inquiry, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, for accommodating her and sorting out her sort of living arrangements overnight because of the issues around her hotel room, and then stepped down.
Okay. Of course, she may be recalled a little later on for either cross-examination or for other information that she may have to provide to the inquiry. Then enter Themba Maseko. He is the former CEO of the Government Information Systems. What was his testimony about, in essence?
Well, almost straight off the bat, he too tripped up and confused who was the deputy president in 2016. And I think since everybody is hanging on to every word of witnesses' testimony, you know, there may be concern there. There was so much concern over discrepancies in Feki Mentor's testimony. But Zondo rightly said it was Cyril Ramaphosa at the time and not Kgalema Motlanthe, and things swiftly moved on from there. He's going to discuss matters in three parts, the first of which is dealing with GCIS and budgetary issues. So he has today, under leadership in his evidence from Advocate Vincent Maleka, discussed some of the budget that was assigned to media and communications, and also a phone call he had with the Gupta brother about meeting to talk about a project in the media space. It was kind of inferred or hinted at. And he says they then went to Saxonwold. So another witness, another meeting in Saxonwold. We're starting to see congruence and repetition of certain trends in terms of these different meetings that have happened at that home. And he says at the time he wasn't concerned about going to the property. It hadn't become so loaded in public discourse.
And then did he speak to what then happened in Saxonwold?
He started speaking about what had happened there and what they discussed, but what I really sort of caught was the initial phone call, which was fairly vague, and that this Gupta brother said it would be better for them to discuss this all in person, face to face. Also, that he said that he was surprised that this Gupta brother had information on how much government funding had been allocated to communications and to his portfolio at GCIS. But what was also important from Maseko today is that he spoke about a memorandum that former DGs signed and which was published, I think, in early 2016, all of whom were talking out about issues of government protocol and procedure and, you know, administration, allocation of funding and the like, which they were concerned had fallen into disarray because of this thing of state capture, really. And that statement includes 27 names, one of which is his, but him saying that these people came forward and raised the flag on state capture. And there Zondo's saying, well, maybe they're people we should be talking to at this inquiry. They surely have information on what was potting during this whole time.
And I guess, I mean, part of the reason why today, certainly, the Commission couldn't get into the gist of what happened either at Saxonwold and what happened subsequently was because a considerable amount of time was spent at the beginning trying to talk to who Themba Maseko was, the various initiatives, including this group of DGs, current and former, who were trying to sensitize the ANC and the government around these misdemeanors. What was Vincent Maleka trying to do here? I suppose I'm asking for your reading of what he was trying to do here.
Yes, and I'm wary of kind of reading too much into what might be hinted at or inferred or whatever, but what I found interesting, which is on the record and certainly happened, was both Zondo and Maleka asked Maseko, you know, what were you thinking when when you went to the house, you know, would it be normal for someone in government to go to the private premises of someone in business who was looking to talk about a project with someone in government? And he said there, firstly, you know, he wasn't concerned about Saxonwold. It wasn't this loaded venue at the time. Also that he wanted to find out what the gist of this whole project was on the Gupta brothers version, and that maybe meeting in someone's home was a little unusual, but it wasn't unusual for him to meet with various stakeholders in the media space. And what I also found interesting was that he said, I know myself. I know my character, was essentially what he was saying. And therefore, it's neither here nor there if I meet in an office, if I meet at a coffee shop, if I meet in someone's home, whether it has golden bathrooms or not kind of thing. I know who I am. And I think there what we're seeing, and this happens with each witness, is setting the foundation in terms of self-characterization, one's own version of who one is before going into the finer details.
But quickly, before I let you go, he did eventually say that he did know that the Guptas were involved in setting up a media company that had newspapers as well as television. Was that before he went to Saxonwold, or did he come to know about that afterwards?
From what I recall, he said he knew there were rumors, there were kind of whispers in corridors sort of thing, you know, that the Guptas were looking to work in the media space. And he said there, you know, he had this understanding from what was in the public domain that the Guptas had a certain strategy in terms of working with government, how much they could profit from working in government, what the MO was when it came to that sort of thing. And so that they were now looking to angle to try the same strategy in media. And that's certainly something that may well come back to bite him. But I think what's also important, if we can just return to Fakey Mentor, that our colleague William Gambi managed to speak with Gwede Mantashe today. And Gwede Mantashe, as well as Jesse Duarte, both quibbling this meeting at Luthuli House, during which Fakey Mentor says she raised the issue of her meeting with the Guptas, during which she says, one, President Jacob Zuma walked in, and two, she was offered a ministerial position. So we're starting to see this mounting up of contradictions, and I think that points to why we really do need to get to a point of clarity and a point of progress on this issue of cross-examination.
Okay, so we're going to leave it for tonight. Erin Bates, who was, of course, attending the state capture inquiry, which continues tomorrow.